A couple of years ago, my cousin and his friends embarked on a daring journey along the rugged western coast of Oregon, USA, using 2 handcrafted rowed dinghies. This stretch of shoreline was renowned for its untamed weather, picturesque beaches, and abundant wildlife. Their ambitious plan was to explore the various small inlets and islands along the Oregon coast while relying on the wilderness for sustenance. They aimed to catch fish for their meals, utilize driftwood for fires, and depend on the boats and a tarp for shelter. During the initial 2 days, they made impressive progress despite battling a persistent headwind. Seeking refuge behind islands provided brief reprieve and made their journey more manageable. As night fell on the first day, they opted to camp on a secluded beach, reveling in the opportunity to sleep beneath the starry sky instead of setting up a tent. The following morning, they rose early, eager to continue their coastal expedition. Rowing and fishing, they ventured further along the Oregon coast, encountering curious seals, playful otters, and a diverse array of coastal birds. The second night passed without incident, offering awe-inspiring sunsets and peaceful beaches. The sky grew slightly cloudier, and they peacefully dozed off to the gentle melody of raindrops tapping on their tarp. On the subsequent day, the weather grew increasingly blustery, challenging their resolve. Despite a decline in fishing luck, they pressed on, their spirits undeterred as they continued to navigate the picturesque coastline. As evening approached, they skillfully maneuvered their way up a narrow channel. Waves grew larger, demanding their utmost attention to ride the surf and avoid treacherous rocks. My cousin was the first to reach the shore, a sense of unease gripping him the moment his feet touched the sandy beach. Working together, they carefully hauled the boats onto the shore, eager to rest and take shelter as the winds gradually subsided. 2 of the friends immediately set about building a fire, while the others diligently began constructing a makeshift shelter. With darkness descending, a disconcerting tension settled among the group. Breaking the heavy silence, one of them acknowledged the collective feeling that something was amiss, describing an indescribable sense of unease that seemed to permeate the place. They shared their concerns, unable to pinpoint the source of their disquiet. Though briefly contemplating relocating, they ultimately decided against it, considering the late hour, the enveloping darkness, and their growing exhaustion. They resolved to make the best of their current location, utilizing the available resources. My cousin, intent on finding sturdy logs for the shelter poles, ventured into the nearby woods. As he ventured further, he became aware of subtle movements in the tall grass and underbrush beyond the beach. The sound resembled that of a small creature, perhaps a large rodent or a curious otter. Ordinarily, he would have dismissed it, but an unshakable unease made him increasingly vigilant. Briefly considering picking up a stick for protection, he hesitated before ultimately dismissing the idea as baseless fear. Having secured suitable poles, he turned to rejoin the group, only to be met with a sudden violent shaking of the bushes and grass. The sound indicated a larger presence, reminiscent of a deer. Yet, an eerie sensation overcame him as he noticed the absence of accompanying footsteps or the snapping of branches. With a growing sense of unease, he hastened his return to the others, opting not to mention the unsettling rustling. Retrieving a few cans of food from the boat, he turned around, only to be met with a sudden flurry of movement that rattled the grasses closer to their camp. Startled, everyone activated their flashlights, desperately trying to discern the source, yet their efforts proved futile. Finally, they managed to kindle a fire, hoping the dancing flames would provide a sense of security. To their dismay, within seconds of the fire being lit, a significant section of grass and bushes began to shake violently, surpassing any previous occurrence. Fearful of an unwelcome visitor, they armed themselves with sticks and rocks, shouting defiantly into the darkness. The rustling persisted, elusive and enigmatic, as the grass swayed, shook, and finally subsided, leaving them on edge and gripped by an unspoken tension. In that moment, a unanimous decision was reached. They could no longer stay, even in the shrouded darkness or amidst the challenging surf. Fueled by a mixture of fear and adrenaline, they hastily finished their dinner, abandoning their unfinished shelter. The two friends rapidly dismantled the structure, while the fire, now sputtering and growing, became a secondary concern. Their thoughts were consumed by the encroaching darkness and the unsettling disturbance that lingered within each of them. Suddenly, the rustling resumed, expanding wider than before, as if a 100-meter stretch of grass, bushes, and trees just beyond the reach of their flickering light was being forcefully shaken. Panic-stricken, they sprang to their feet, casting their lights in all directions, desperate to catch even a glimpse of the source. Yet, all they could perceive was a surreal symphony of swaying vegetation. Shouting fervently, they endeavored to ward off the unseen menace, be it creature or human, yet the rustling persisted, unyielding to their efforts. The tempo of the rustling escalated, expanding further in both directions around the beach. Encircled by an ever-increasing chorus of undulating vegetation, they found themselves with their backs against the vast expanse of the sea. The cacophony grew louder, transforming into a crashing crescendo. Plants thrashed back and forth violently, joined by the swaying trees, as nature itself seemed to rise in disarray. The deafening sound drowned out the crashing of the waves, leaving them entrapped in a nightmarish symphony of tumult. Without uttering a word, they sprinted towards the boats, hastily tossing their gear inside and frantically pushing them into the water. With hearts pounding, they clambered aboard, propelled by sheer will to escape the turbulent waves that threatened to engulf them. One of them was momentarily knocked over by a powerful wave, but he quickly regained his footing, darting back to the boat as his partner extended a helping hand. They rowed with unyielding determination, their muscles strained, propelled by an overwhelming desire to leave the eerie shore behind. Finally, as they emerged beyond the tumultuous surf, the crashing vegetation abruptly ceased. The only audible sound was the rhythmic crashing of the waves against the hull. Drifting aimlessly, they caught their breath, their eyes inevitably drawn back to the beach they had hastily abandoned. In the distance, my cousin thought he glimpsed the haunting figure, an apparition perhaps, formed from the encroaching shadows. While he couldn't be certain, each member of the group shared a chilling sight. The fire they had left behind was abruptly extinguished. Rowing throughout the night, their adrenaline and fear negated any possibility of sleep. When dawn broke, they made the unanimous decision to abandon their ambitious expedition and return to their starting point, arriving both physically exhausted and mentally relieved, forever haunted by the inexplicable events that unfolded along the rugged western coast of Oregon.